Thank you so much for sitting with us today after bravely sharing your story. There are so many people who hold back from opening up about their experiences, often out of fear of judgment or retaliation. My hope is that through this conversation, we can inspire someone who's been struggling in silence to come forward and share their own story as a form of healing and release. Your courage can serve as a powerful example for others seeking the same kind of freedom. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so the first question I have for you is, what inspired you to share your personal story on Instagram, and how has that decision impacted your mental health?
Okay, so I definitely feel like my spirituality is the thing that helped me, that inspired me to share my story. I feel like as I dove deep into my healing journey and started just discovering all of these gifts that had laid dormant, I guess, within me for so long, I started to realize that I'm more powerful and stronger than I ever thought I was. Mm-hmm. I feel like in my life, I've always felt like I've had to just hide in the shadows. I was never able to fully express myself in the ways that I really wanted to be able to. And that was because of having to keep family secrets, and it was very hard to do that, because how are you able to fully be and express yourself if the biggest piece of you isn't able to be expressed, So yeah, I feel like that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, so I see that a lot of people have been turning to spirituality, which is amazing. When did you find that was going to be your driving force? When did you actually turn to spirituality?
I feel like, honestly, ever since I was a little girl, I've always had some spark within me, that almost like a navigational type thing, that connecting to like a higher me, but didn't understand that was what it was. So as I don't know, I grew older, and I think my sister passing actually was a turning point in that. I've always felt guided, but after her, I kind of felt like she was almost like a personal guide. Like things really started opening up for me. I started understanding and like really trying to, I guess, figure out myself and the depths of myself. But I definitely feel like she was a guiding force in that process.
Yeah. So I watched your videos, and so you actually grew up in the church, correct? Like in that community. Did you ever feel like, with the church not necessarily having your back, going through all of, the things that you've gone through, was it easy to kind of go right back to that spirituality, thinking like, I went through all this trauma, I was growing up in the church world, now I'm turning back to it as my driving force, as my saving grace. Has that been easy for you?
It hasn't been easy, and I feel like because of my, growing up in the church family, in the church, sorry. It was almost like I really held faith there for as long as I could. And then as I started getting a little older, it kind of got a little discouraging, because here I am trying to pray my way out of these horrible situations, and I always felt like, I don't know, like nothing was ever coming. Like no one was coming to save me, essentially. And so I backed away. I backed away from it. It was like, it was almost like shoved in my face so much as a child that when I got older, I wanted the complete opposite. So it wasn't until I started doing like my inner work and stuff like that I realized, oh my gosh, like I'm connected to something. Don't exactly know what that something is, but for me, it's just like a higher power.
Yeah.
But recently, I've started to maybe seek more God, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like I'm actually starting to navigate back to him.
Okay.
I feel like it's all connecting. Like, yes, you
Yeah.
me. I feel like I've labeled myself as spiritual, but not religious.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like they're starting to like mesh again.
I think you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so much weight that is carried on spirituality and then religiousness, and it's like, well, why can't that mesh? And I can use whatever word I want, right? So thank
they
you for
can
sharing all that.
coexist.
Exactly, they can
Yes,
coexist.
they can coexist.
All right, so now, how do you navigate the balance between vulnerability and self-care when opening up about your trauma on a public platform?
Navigate myself. I feel like I take lots of rests. Like, I can feel when my body just needs a moment and a minute. When I started sharing my story, I was starting to relive moments all over again. Feelings started to come back up that kind of were
triggering yourself again. Yeah.
and I just wanted to just shove them back down so deep. But part of this healing is to be able to look them in the face and get through them.
All your triggers?
Yeah. So I just feel like I know my body. I know when it needs to take a pause. And that's how I feel like I've been able to kind of balance that out.
So walk me through the process, because you dropped 5 videos on Instagram back to back to back, which is amazing, right? Because I think that so many people need that rest, which you've said, hey, I took that rest. I knew when to listen to my body. Walk me kind of through that process of your recording, and what reactions were your body feeling? Because I think that that's so huge when it comes to mental health, is recognizing those
Correct.
physical kind of symptoms or messages.
Yeah.
So walk me through that process. What did you feel?
So I think as I stated in, I think, my very first video, there will never be a perfect time and or place to come out and express anything. The day that I decided to talk about this and pour my heart into these videos, it was almost like it was a spur of the moment. It was like, hey, I have this day, I'm feeling great. Let's go to my happy place, which happens to be a cemetery. It's just very quiet and peaceful, and I get a lot of guidance there. Like I get downloads sometimes, but as I was starting to open up and talk and express, I got waves of feelings actually throughout the whole process. So anxiety, definitely, like, the cold sweats, the tingling feelings, nausea, like that came over me like really hard. I definitely had a moment of like, I'm not doing this. What the heck do I think I'm doing right now? Like, this is a bad idea, abort mission.
Yeah.
But I said, I've come this far. I'm not turning back. Like, I just had to go with that. But no, it was hard. It was definitely hard. Lots of crying, lots of tears. It was a roller coaster. It was definitely a roller coaster of emotions. But I knew when to stop. There's more to the childhood series, but I knew that I had to stop when I did because of my body, and me being able to listen to it.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, because I think, sometimes some people will say, oh, my stomach hurts, or maybe I ate something bad. And it could just simply mean it's an anxiety attack, or it's fear. It's all of those emotions that we sometimes don't necessarily know how to connect with that physical piece.
So true.
I think because we are always talking about like, oh my God, the cold sweats, there's something wrong with me. Maybe I have a high temperature, a fever or something. And it's like, or you're just nervous, or you're just scared. So I think that that's amazing that you were able to kind of put those two together and say, okay, I'm feeling this because of this.
Right.
So yeah, that's amazing. And I can share that, once watching that video, I can see so much hurt and so much pain, but also see so much anger as well that was there. And it was so real and raw. And I think that was such a beautiful thing, that people can see that and say, oh, this is real. This is not just attention seeking. So I wanted to kind of go into the next question that just popped in my mind is, were you afraid of that piece where people are like, oh, this is attention seeking, even though you're releasing it because I need to release for me? But were you afraid of that piece?
That was my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I almost didn't do it because of that. But what made me say, like, absolutely not. And yes, go through with it was I know myself and I know my intentions. I want to touch on that too, is a lot of people throughout my lifetime have projected their own fears and thoughts onto me. And I've held them like they're my own for the longest time. And, you know, part of healing is being able to step into that confident version of you and know that my thoughts are my own and no one else's are mine, right? And that's exactly what I did in that process. Was if people want to take it that way, then that's a you problem, because that's not my intention here. And if you knew me and you knew like where I was coming from, it's very evident. Like it speaks for itself that is clearly not what this is.
And I think your videos speak volumes to that, right? It shows that it's like, I'm not here to appease anybody, to, you know, I'm just here to release this for me, right? And I tell my dancers all the time, if someone doesn't like you, that's a them problem. It's not stopping you from smiling. It's not stopping you from being happy.
No.
However, what is stopping you is allowing them or the thoughts about you to affect your everyday life.
I agree with that.
For what? Everybody else gets to move on and do what they get to do.
So true.
So why can't I actually speak up for myself? Everybody else gets to.
Yes.
So I think that that's amazing. So with that being said, what role has mental health support, such as therapy, community, or self-care practices, played in your healing process so far since you've released the videos?
Yeah, so I feel like I do a lot of grounding work. I do a lot of inner child work. I do a lot of meditation and actually talking to myself.
Yeah.
A lot. And that has completely helped this process for me. Like the in-depth, I guess, the in-depth reflection, you know, that I'm able to have and I don't know, like work through just by practicing these little things. I feel like have really unlocked a whole level of me, essentially, and that has been a huge process in my healing journey and getting through this.
Do you have a grounding technique that you would actually care to share? Because I'm always open to
Hug a
learning.
tree. Go hug a tree.
I mean, there's no tree here, so hug a tree. Okay.
Take off your shoes.
Yeah.
And get connected with the earth.
Okay.
It could be planting a flower. Like that's like getting your hands dirty in the soil, you know?
Yeah.
You can hug a tree, you can touch a tree, talk to a tree, but like plants in your house, talk to your plants.
Okay.
These are all things that connect you with the earth. And that's part of the grounding. They have so much healing power in them. And I don't think we are taught this. But it's something that I feel like we need to know more of.
I think you're so right, because when you go to the doctors and you're having these conversations, and again, nothing wrong with these techniques of taking medications, right? I've been pretty open that I've been on antidepressants, and they do its thing. What it does is put rose gold glasses over you, and so you're not necessarily kind of getting rid of the problem. It's just, again, everything just looks peachy and a little bit more clear. So they do work, right? For people when you find the right one. However, I think that talking about connecting with the earth is so much more powerful, because you know, even I'm such a big person, like I love TikTok, and I think that I've seen so many things about just grounding, putting your feet, on the cement or in the grass and just
Yes.
standing there, or, when you first wake up in the morning, let that ray of sun just hit your face.
Exactly.
And so it's just like, oh, okay, so we're going back to like archaic times
Yes.
when we are just connecting as one, because they didn't have shoes.
No.
They didn't have as much clothing that we do have. And, I'm grateful we do, only because I don't want to be cold all the time. But I think it is important. So how do you necessarily get those grounding techniques in the winter when, there is no grass for you to stand on? So how do you actually go through that?
This could be long walks,
Okay.
like bundle up and just go for a nice walk. You could find, there's like Borderlands, Massasoit State Park, like these little area, even by your house, if you have like, maybe a wooded area that you like to walk, but that's a way of being able to, because you're in nature, it's all around you. If you have a lake, even a body of water too,
Okay.
you can maybe walk by a body of water. Again, talk to your plants.
Yeah. So it's really just being one with nature,
Yes.
but also kind of being in a space of calm and by yourself. I like that, because there's sometimes where I go for a nice long walks and I feel, great. I have so much energy.
Yeah.
And I hate walking.
Yes.
I hate walking. However, I feel off when I don't walk. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I guess what you're saying is, Bev, go back to your walk.
Yes. So I actually want to talk about walking for a minute.
Yes, absolutely.
So walking is one of the ways that I actually was able to get into my head, meaning I really had hit like a rock bottom moment. And I'm like, okay, get your body moving. My fiance goes to the gym all the time, but in that time frame, I just couldn't get myself there. So I said, you know what? A stepping stone for me would just be to get out in my neighborhood and just start walking. I didn't know what that would look like or anything like that. And once I started walking, and specifically in the cemetery by my house, the cemetery really means so much to me. That's what unlocked everything, was me starting to walk. That I don't know what it was. Music in my head, podcasts, me listening to podcasts, and sometimes just silence, so I could connect with myself. That was honestly probably a pivoting moment in my spiritual journey. I got outside and started walking.
Yeah.
That's it.
I know, because
And then
sometimes there's so much
went
clarity.
from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
See, that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back on my walk.
Yes, please do.
All right, so now that you've released,
Okay.
and then you're kind of like, the videos are out there.
Yeah.
All that information is out there. It's, at everybody's like fingers, at their fingertips. How has the response been from your followers or community? And how has it influenced your mental health since sharing it?
The responses are overwhelmingly amazing.
Good.
Because it's almost like a validation of what my heart actually wanted to express. I did it in the way that I wanted to do it. I did it raw, completely vulnerable, on a whim. It was not perfect, and I didn't want it to be, because nothing about it is perfect.
But that's what makes it perfect, though. No expectations.
None. There was absolutely none. But the responses have been, I'm like elated. I feel so free. I feel a huge sense of release. I feel like a burden has been lifted off of me that I've had to carry around for so long, and in silence.
Yeah.
It is so painful. And I'm not feeling that anymore. And I've only tapped my foot in the water. There's so much more.
Yeah.
But again, I want to take my time. I want it to be my way. And I'll just know when I'm done with, with the process. And I don't even know what that looks like.
Right.
It is completely open.
So you have the only end game that you have is to feel good for you.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
All right. So then, now that you've done all that, what would be your advice for someone who's been holding this in for so long? Just, not even just, the trauma that you've gone through, but just holding something in and being so silent. What is your advice to them? Or what can you share with them, to help them kind of start having that pivotal moment or finding or understanding or realizing that they're having that? Because I think some people don't get it.
Absolutely.
What would you say to them?
Self-love and confidence. Okay. Number one thing. That is actually the thing that was the defining moment in my journey, was when I tapped into the self-love and the confidence that I don't think I've ever had, like really, truly. Thought I did, but was not really close at all. Once I started doing that work and really started getting, to know myself in depth, what that does is it allows you to look at yourself in such a beautiful light and loving space that you won't even allow anyone to treat you less than how you observe yourself. That was it. Because once I got to that moment of, oh my God, like this feels so good. Like I love myself. I can look myself in the eyes and say all the most beautiful things to myself easily. And it's never been easy before.
Yeah.
That is what I would that is what I would tell someone going through this. Words of affirmation to yourself almost every day. Stare yourself in the mirror and just say all the most beautiful things to yourself. Get a notebook and start writing all the thoughts. If you have to divide it down the page, all the thoughts, all the negative thoughts that maybe hinder you from moving forward, get them out. Because when they're out on paper, you're able to observe them. You're able to look at them. And honestly, when you're looking at them, it kind of makes you go, maybe that is not true. Maybe that's not. Maybe I'm not that.
Yeah.
And then when you, on the other side, you write all the nice things about yourself, the positive things, and more times than not, you'll probably be able to resonate more with that. And I think it's harder for us to express negative things onto ourselves than it is to actually speak positive about ourselves. More, I feel like that's definitely true for most people.
Yeah, I'm thinking, as you're speaking, I'm like, all right, if I were to do this exercise, right, I'm like putting myself in that space. I am so, my therapist actually laughs at me because I'm like, I write like super nice fluffy things.
Yes.
In my journal. And she's like, why? And I was like, what do you mean? If somebody finds it? And she was like, I'm sorry, do you have something that's the National Enquirer wants? And I was like, I think so.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Everybody's going to want to know what's in my head.
Yes.
She goes, no, you need to get what's out of your head onto paper.
Absolutely.
Because once you've put it down, you've actually released it all. And so then I'm thinking, I'm like, if I were to do this exercise and folded the piece of paper in half and did all negatives and positives, I probably would have a lot more positives, right? Because it's like, I don't want to necessarily connect to the negative piece. I don't want to see it on paper. I don't want to believe it. So it's like, I'm going to write all the amazing things that I truly believe about myself. That column would actually be a lot more. So all that to say, I actually like that activity, and I think I would try it for myself, because when it's here, it is a lot more negative. And I'm always beating myself up. I'm very type A personality. Everything has to be perfect. Everything, that I think that exercise would be amazing. So it's like, no, you can actually see the amazing things.
It's the visual.
That would, that you truly believe in yourself. Okay. Awesome. So can I share with you? So when I first met you, I believe it was at Stoughton Day?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. This was before you dropped. Okay. So I'm super into auras and all that other stuff. So don't judge me. Don't judge me.
Me too. That's my language.
Yeah, there was such a transition, right? So saw you at Stoughton Day, and you seem to have this dark cloud or like a heavy cloud on your shoulder. Like, still you were beaming, you were smiling, you were everything on the outside, but there was something heavy. I saw you at the Stoughton Y the other day. You were walking in your power. The difference, I'm telling you, and I was sitting at that kiosk, signing people in, and watching you walk in was like, I'm here, I'm in my truth, I've released. So just seeing those two, because those were several weeks apart, and the Y was just a couple of days ago. And so when you walked in there, I was like, who is this woman who's walking in? And you had your family behind you, and that to me was like, boom, she got a support system physically behind her.
Yes.
But also emotionally.
Yes.
And I wanted to share that with you because I see those things in people, and it was such a beautiful thing to see that I was like, man, she just looks amazing walking out right now. And the way you walked out, you were like, see, and I was like, yes. But that to me is so powerful because it's like, you shared again the most vulnerable part of yourself with the world, and you again had no expectations. The videos were so real, so raw, not planned whatsoever, that you had to catch yourself at moments to be like, hold on, I'm getting a little sidetracked. This is not, just reel it in. But to see how you were like kind of like closed off a little bit when I met you at Stoughton Day, was like, I'm trying to be open, I'm trying to this, but I don't know how to, and I'm just then to walk into the Y and be like, no, I'm a badass. Like, that to me was so amazing, and it felt so good. And so I share that one for you to like, know that it's there. We see it.
Thank you.
But also to share, like, anybody else can feel this after releasing something so devastating to them. Everyone's story matters. If they may not have gone through something as traumatic as, as you, even people are like, well, I may not have gone through that, and mine is not that bad. Never compare your story, right? Because I think that's the biggest piece, is that some people will say, you know what, hers was a lot worse than mine. Yours is worse for you,
I'm happy that you're actually expressing that, because I've gotten a lot of that. A lot.
Wow.
As responses. Crystal, I know that what I went through was nothing even close to yours, but blah, 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 blah. I stop everyone in their tracks when they say that, because it's not about comparing experiences. It's, these things are horrible in itself. They are devastating. They're hurtful. It brings a lot of sadness and hindering. And I feel like just being able to acknowledge each other, and to say, like, I see you regardless of the depths of your pain, is huge.
It's there.
It's there, and it doesn't matter, the level of it.
Right.
I
Exactly.
agree.
Because it's like, I'm sure that somebody will be able to connect with the cold sweats, the nausea. Again, even if their story's not as bad as yours, if you still felt those things and had those physical symptoms of anxiety, so that means your trauma is real.
Yes.
Right? So there's so many layers and levels. It doesn't matter how bad your situation is. The fact that it cut you deep and it left a mark, that's what matters. I think the biggest thing is, people talk about physical violence all the time. But there's also that emotional piece too, right? Those are the scars you can't see.
Absolutely.
And they're harder to heal.
Yes, they
Where
are.
the physical pain is like, I got a scratch or something. Let me put a Band-Aid over it. Can't see it for a little bit. Take the Band-Aid off. It's gone. But that emotional and mental abuse or trauma that you're getting, that one takes years and years and years, because sometimes they're covered up so much.
So true.
That a little thing can trigger it. And so for you, it came across in the video like, this is my pain, this is how I'm gonna heal from it, and I'm choosing me at the end of the day. I think that's the biggest piece, is choosing you.
It is, yes. And I feel like I finally reached a moment in my life where it was my time, because it couldn't have happened any earlier in my life because I wasn't mentally ready for it.
Right.
It's like I'm so tapped into myself and I'm so of the knowing now that I am grateful that I get the, what do you say, the intuitive pushes when it's ready to do something, when it's ready, to move forward in something that I have in my mind. I'm very grateful for that guidance.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And how has your partner and your kids have been throughout this?
Oh my gosh, I am so grateful. I'm so happy. This journey would be so much harder if I didn't have their support. When I expressed to the kids that I would be embarking on this journey, and that would mean, talking on a platform to essentially the world, like whoever wants to listen and tap in, whoever it resonates with. I didn't want them to feel embarrassed or shamed or any of those feelings, and I have to say, both of my kids looked at me when I asked them that, like I had 5 heads.
Yeah.
Like, how could we ever think that of you? If
That's
anything,
amazing.
we're so proud. You are so strong. We're so happy you're our mom. Like I lost it.
Yeah.
Because I truly feel like even though I knew what I wanted to do, if I didn't have them backing me, I'm not sure I would have been able to fully go through. Maybe not this way. I don't really know, because I didn't want that for them. And then my fiance, honestly, always number one support. Always, never,
that's so beautiful.
ever. If it's something that my heart truly wants and desires, it's how do we make this happen? We're going to figure this out.
That's
and
so
I'm
cool.
so grateful to have that. That type of support system, truly.
So, what would be your message to someone who may not have that, right? Because I know that you grew up in an environment where you didn't grow up with that. And also, actually, another question too. So this is a double one where, how did you create that bond with your kids and your fiance growing up in the environment that you did to make sure that they did not have that,
Well,
but not doing too much, right?
Okay, so creating, I am my worst critic when it comes to being a parent, because I didn't have the greatest, or role models, I should say, and just in general.
Yeah.
It was very hard for me to step into that role effortlessly. When I met Josh, I feel like we both had reflecting that we needed to do, on our, from our childhoods. And we looked at each other and we said, we do not want to continue these generational curses and behaviors that have kind of, that we've had to endure.
Yeah.
So that was it. It was like, let's do this work. We don't want them to ever feel like they aren't good enough. We want to teach them, how to be independent, be able to, I don't know, just be themselves, whole, as a whole entirety, and be able to just express themselves too. I feel like a lot of the times, I don't know, it's easier to keep habits going even though you know that they don't serve you, than it is to stop and reflect, do the work
To change it.
And then actually actively act out, those new
Right.
behaviors, it's I
Well,
feel
it sounds like you have been doing an amazing job for them to say, yeah, sure, you can be on social media and tell the whole world our business, because, sometimes kids can be fun, but I think you have some great kids to say, hey, you got to do what's best for you, and that only comes from your parenting.
Thank you.
So you have to Give yourself a little, you know. So now that we've done all that fun stuff, now we can actually get to enjoy this amazing charcuterie.
Cheers.
So cheers. We've made it through.
Ready?